Welcome to Focus on the Five, conversations with Baldwin County business leaders and entrepreneurs, brought to you by Josh Knoll of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. And now, Josh Knoll.
Hi everyone, welcome to Focus on the Five, conversations with Baldwin County, Alabama area entrepreneurs and business leaders. I'm your host, Josh Knoll of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. We are coming to you today from the studios of WABF 1480, located here in beautiful downtown Fairhope, Alabama. Some of you all may know my guest today as a local restaurant entrepreneur and a really very active member of the community and the church, but I bet you didn't know the mountain he climbed to get where he's at and the lessons he's learned along the way, because that's what we're going to talk about today. So as we get into that, let's give a big welcome to our guest, Mr. Andy McGee of Lennys Grill and Subs. How you doing, Andy?
Hey, doing well, Josh. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, see, you come up already. All right, so Andy, we've gotten to know each other a little bit better over the last couple months, and I think you've got an incredible story to tell, and we're going to get into that. But before we do that, I'd really like you to, let's take an opportunity to tell the listeners about your business, Lennys Grill and Subs. What are we getting into?
Sure. So I own two delis in Daphne, one on Highway 98 that is in its 13th year, and one that's newer on Highway 90 behind Lowe's. We've been there for a little over a year. Both stores have drive-throughs. The 98 store is the #1 catering Lennys in the country, so we do a lot of catering, and they're just family-owned local businesses.
Very good. Now, there's a handful of people who maybe haven't eaten at Lennys Subs, or maybe it's been many years. How would you describe the food?
Sure. So we're a Jersey-style sub shop, so you can order Philly cheesesteaks, and those are cooked on a flat grill when you order them. You can order cold subs, and those are sliced fresh when you order them. Every morning we're there very early, baking our own bread, slicing our own veggies. It is the best sandwich I know how to make.
Right. All right. Now, Lennys is a nationwide franchise.
We're kind of regional. There's about 100 stores, and I own 2 of those. But we are centered in Memphis, and it kind of expands southeast from there.
Okay. Does it have a particular niche that it tries to serve? Is there?
I'm not usually competing directly with Subway. Usually our customer is someone that is quality sensitive. Subway will always be cheaper. I will always be better. So that's
there
kind
it
of
is.
the
Just dropping the bomb right off the bat.
Well, it's just a difference, you know.
Right.
I mean, if you're looking for a $5 lunch, then you know where to go for that, and we're probably $8.
Very good. Okay. Well, how did you find Lennys franchise, and how'd you get into it?
So I grew up in Memphis, and that's where Lennys started. So I knew the brand. I went to college in Arkansas, and I graduated a semester before my wife, and I needed a job while she was finishing her degree. So I worked at Lennys in Searcy, Arkansas before we moved to Mobile in 2005.
Okay. University of Arkansas is where?
No, I went to Harding University. It's a small private Christian school. It's a little northeast of Little Rock.
Oh, very good. Okay. All right. So do you as getting into the franchising of Lennys Subs, do you have a particular section of the market that you mentioned in your opening? Does Lennys intentionally go after the catering? Is that how do they distinguish themselves?
We're particularly good at catering, like my stores. That's something that's a niche we have carved out in Baldwin County. But in general, we're a lunchtime oriented business. We do more business in an hour at lunch than we do, in the evenings for dinner altogether.
Okay. How now catering, for big businesses, small businesses? I mean, what
our bread and butter are relationships with local schools. We are part of school lunch programs for I think all of the Catholic schools, for Bayside, Bayshore, City Hope School beginning next year. And so that's very steady business. We love that. And then for your large employers, we do all the new hire orientation meals for Austell, from Infirmary Health, Ace Hardware, Loxley. So, your mid-sized to large companies like that.
Okay.
We're kind of successful with both, I think.
How many meals are you delivering at one time on one of those bigger clients?
So we've had a few orders for 1,000 people at a time for things like an Austell open house or a Bayside graduation ceremony. But in general, lunches for 30 or 40 people that make up the majority of our business.
Okay. Well, all right, somebody orders 50 meals. I mean, how much prep time do you need on that? I mean,
we would love to know at least the day before.
Okay.
So most of our customers want it delivered. I have 2 retirees that are my delivery drivers, and as long as I can let them know the day before, they're going to be available to deliver wherever we need.
And the 1,000 order, I mean, is your kitchen just monstrous back there? We can't see it. I mean,
No,
how the heck do you make that many sandwiches?
So, I mean, we have started catering at midnight before.
Okay.
And rented refrigerated trucks. We've learned that we can make catering for, I'm going to do some quick mental math, for about 200 people an hour. So I can make sandwiches for 200 people an hour. So for a 1,000-person order, I'm going to start probably 6 hours before I want to be done to give myself some margin.
That's a lot of sandwiches.
It's a crazy number of sandwiches. We did 700 sandwiches last week for the J. Larry Newton Spring Into Art fundraiser.
Wow.
They had tried in years past cooking their own hamburgers and stuff on site, and one of the PTO leaders told me that was a learning experience for them.
They just get overwhelmed.
Exactly.
There's no way to keep up.
I think she said they had people waiting over an hour
Right.
to get a hamburger.
Right.
And so when we did that order, we started at 10 o'clock that morning and delivered at 3 o'clock that afternoon or 3:30, and they didn't have any of those issues. So we loved doing that.
Well, all right, so here's what I want to ask you, then I want to get to the story behind the story. So
Sure.
When did you open your first location, and which one was it?
We opened Lenny's in Daphne on 98, my wife and I, in March of 2007.
Okay.
And we were both working, 70 plus hours a week for a year or two. We didn't have kids then, and it was our whole life. We were the Lennys people.
Well, all right, so your wife jumped in and worked with you right off the bat.
Yes, my wife's degree is interior design, and when we made the decision that we were not moving to a Dallas or a big city like that, she knew that she was going to have to do something else, at least for the start of her career. And so we decided we would work really hard together, and the plan we wrote down on paper was that we would work together until we were 30, and then at 30 we would have kids, and we'd have 2.5 kids, and that whole Fairhope dream, and some
That's
of those
everywhere.
things. I know that's the American dream.
I thought I would have it so figured out.
Yes.
I've got to find that plan. I had the whole when I'm 30.
I have mine on
million
the
in the
computer.
bank.
Yeah,
you know,
I had some of those ideas too.
I mean, had it all lined out.
Yes.
And actually, things went pretty well. It was the 33, 34 that didn't work out as well for me.
Yeah. Well,
But, how old were you when you opened the first store?
So we were 24 when we opened the
24
first
years
store,
old.
and the reason we were able to do that, so at that time I had been managing Lenny's for other people for 2 years. A guy named Steve Brady and his brother Chad owned the stores in Mobile, and Steve helped me. He kind of went to bat for me to the franchisor and even to some local banks. And between he and my dad, who lived in Memphis at the time, I was able to open that first store myself at age 24.
Okay. Were you one of the youngest at the time, or were
I think
you
I probably was, and in hindsight, like at the time, I thought that was so cool,
Right.
Because like you mentioned, early 20s, you're really
Oh, yeah.
arrogant. Looking back, I think, oh gosh, I was young, and I paid a price for that.
Right. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about that, because here's what I can tell you, having started out my entrepreneurial journey very young, kind of right out of college like you did, that I know at the time, the public, your friends, your family, what they saw was a young man opening a business like that and thinking, well, this guy's really got things figured out, right?
Right. And you think that too, at least I did.
But what they may not see behind the scenes, at least let's walk down this road a little bit. What they didn't see behind the scenes is things just weren't super easy, super smooth, right?
No, I made really stupid decisions and expensive mistakes.
Well, okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, as a part of what people watch the show for is talk to.
Sure. So I'll be as honest as you want me to be.
Oh, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur,
Right.
Right, and really
Okay.
what they mean is they want to invent some great product that people give them millions of dollars for, and they never work out hard.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of us
Right.
that kind of stumble through and figure our way out.
Right, and so 10 years in, I can say I did learn some lessons, and I am wiser for it. I guess I'm 12 or 13 years in now, but at the time, man, I made so many mistakes. I tried to be my own accountant. I tried to be my own marketer. I thought that because I did really well in school, I would be really good at every part of so I was good in my accounting class.
Right.
So I thought I would be good at accounting.
That's right.
I was good in my marketing class, so I thought I would be good at marketing. And that just wasn't true. And there weren't enough hours in the day to do justice to all those disciplines. And so I ended up failing at accounting and eventually paying an accountant a tidy sum to clean up my mess. And I failed at marketing, and or at least did it poorly, and ended up later paying marketers to do what I did not.
Right.
So-
Okay. All right. Well, let's continue down that journey, because I know that there was if not to say that you and I had the exact same paths, but I know that one of the benefits of becoming an entrepreneur young was I made the mistakes at a young age, and it almost forced self-awareness on me younger than I think it would have happened otherwise. So what did you learn about yourself when you're basically kind of getting smacked in the face left and right there in the beginning? What did you learn?
I mean, honestly, I learned I'm kind of lazy, that I usually am going to take the easier road. And so when I was 24, I thought, oh, I'll do all these things the hard way. I learned that saving money is a discipline that doesn't happen by accident.
Yes.
And that having money in savings is your security blanket when things don't go the way you want them to go. Help me out, Josh. What else did we learn?
Well, I mean, I learned that college smart was not business smart.
Yes, amen to that. That should be a bumper sticker.
And I learned that the world is run by C- students.
Yes.
That was a real revelation to me.
Yes, people that had a better smile than me were more successful than me because that smile opened doors for them, and people didn't care what my grades were or my ACT scores were. You know, I think I thought that because school was so easy, life would be so easy, and that wasn't true.
Amen.
And I hope I teach my kids that.
You try.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I thought my ability to remember facts and figures easily translated me being very smart, and it actually was the opposite. To be honest with you. All right, so I'd like to dive in a little bit of the personal life there in that time period. That was something you'd sent me on your outline. Was you also in your personal life, you all were going through some things?
Sure. So I guess 2 or 3 years after we opened the store, so back up a little bit, I mentioned we went to a Christian college. I was raised with kind of a nominal faith. So like, you know, I went to Christian schools, I believed in God, I was a good boy, those kinds of things. And then after college, I, you know, was arrogant and figured I've got this stuff figured out. I know what I'm doing. I'm chasing success. And I didn't have time for church and things like that. And anyway, mid to late 20s, my business is not doing so well. My marriage is really struggling. My wife is kind of tired of me. And I just got really, really humbled.
She wasn't tired of you. She was tired of the outside life and the pressures making the wrong part of Andy come out.
Maybe so. Maybe that's a really nice way to look at it. But the person I was, she was tired of.
Right.
The person I was acting like, she was tired of. So anyway, we started, had some customers invite us to church, what is now Three Circle, used to be church on the Eastern Shore. They had a counseling center. We went to marriage counseling. And I remember the pastor there, his name was Mark. He now pastors Freedom Church in Fairhope. And one day Mark was preaching and he said, you people that are skeptical, that aren't really sure what you believe, a lot of times you will go and you'll buy a book and you'll read a book about God or about the Bible. Mm-hmm. He said, I would just challenge you, if you have questions about God or about the Bible, read the Bible. Read it. And he said, read the book of John, I think was what he mentioned. And so that struck a chord with me because I had been that skeptic. And I started reading the book of John, and I just, you know, I don't know how religious you want your show to be, but my life just started changing really, really quickly. And I would trust God with something small, and he was faithful, and I would trust him with something bigger. And so my marriage started slowly changing. My business started slowly changing. The way I saw my employees changed a lot. I was no longer just, you know, using people to make my business successful, but I wanted to actively improve their lives and mentor them and develop them as well. And one thing I've learned in the past few years is that when you invest in people, they are usually a better resource for you too. And so it's actually self-serving when you serve others, which is kind of ironic.
Well, plus you can. Yeah, my dad, when I was young, and I started working for him, and I'd ask him, what am I going to make? Mm-hmm. He said, well, I'll pay you what you're worth. Yeah. And I said, well, what's that mean? He said, we're going to find out.
Right.
Right? So he paid me what I was worth. Uh-huh. He said, but I'm going to give you the skills to do whatever you want later in life. Mm-hmm. And I would think, you know, especially with something like Lenny's, you probably have a younger workforce.
Yes.
You give them an opportunity to, you know, be pretty self-reliant and responsible, and mm-hmm. they maybe they're not making the big money now. Right. But they take those skills and they translate it into something further down the road.
Well, we've been there 12 years now, or 13 years, and so I've seen those stories. I've got people that worked for me that I hired when they were 16, and so those people are now 28, 29 years old. And a lot of them are very successful now, mm-hmm. and they've brought their wives and even children to come meet me, and that's really, really gratifying. And there was no way I could have grasped that when I was 24 years old and only looking out for myself.
Or I talked to a guy, and he asked me, he said, what's been your most important job? I said, digging ditches for my dad.
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of like informed everything I had. So I think you're giving people that opportunity. All right, so we're going to break real quick for station identification, and then I got the big T word for you, triplets.
Okay.
I want to dive in on that. So if you all are just joining us, this is WABF 1480 AM, and this is Focus on the Five, conversations with Baldwin County, Alabama area entrepreneurs and business leaders. I'm your host, Josh Knoll. I'm joined today by Mr. Andy McGee of Lennys Grill and Subs. All right, so you're a young guy, business owner, trying to get things off the ground, trying to have a marriage, a young marriage. Young marriage is hard enough, and then add 70 hours, and you're doing, you are making your own money. That adds that level of stress. Now you're probably getting to the age you want to have kids.
Yes.
All right, you want to take it from there?
Sure. So late 20s, I think we already mentioned we had done the church thing, done marriage counseling, life was improving, marriage was improving, and we decided we wanted to have kids. And we started running into some roadblocks and realized within a year or two that we were going to have to go down a fertility road. A few other things happened around that same time. We had a young man that worked with us that lost his home or his ability to live at home, and we offered him a place to live, and George ended up living with us for 3 years. Those 3 years were really uncomfortable at first, but they really changed our heart towards foster care and adoption, and that continues to spin out in our lives today. We had an adoption that we pursued, and I started a second career to pay for that adoption. So if you've heard of AIDT, that big container park looking building as you're about to enter the tunnel in Mobile,
Okay.
I went to night classes there and learned to weld aluminum. And from there I went to Austell, and I worked for 2 years, initially as a trades assistant and eventually up to an A-class ship fitter. And Austell's insurance was phenomenal for me. Austell was phenomenal for me. First of all, it gave me confidence that whatever happened in my business, whether Lenny's lived or died, my family would be fed. And so learning a trade was really eye-opening for me, because I realized that I would feed my family regardless of my business success. And that kind of gave me confidence to take more risks. Right. Additionally, their health insurance was really good. And so the adoption, we saved up the money, we traveled to Haiti, we met this little girl. Long story short, over 2 years, that all fell apart. We started fertility treatments during that time, and our third round of fertility treatments, we got triplets. And so at that time, when my wife retired from making sandwiches, I kept working at Austell and managing Lenny's, and in November of 2012 we brought home triplets. And those next 6 months were really crazy. I mean, they were really kind of awful, honestly. We did have some help, and my dad and his wife moved down from Memphis, and they brought dinner over to the house every night and rocked babies, but it was just crazy. Those babies were 4 or 5 pounds when they came home.
Right.
And so they had to eat every 3 hours. So around the clock, and you couldn't take turns because there's 3 of them. So around the clock, we're both getting up and feeding and changing babies, 11-2-5-8, 11-2-5-8. And I think they were probably close to 10 pounds before they started sleeping through the night.
Oh my gosh.
And so those 6 months were rough.
Well, and I looking back, so Jen and I have 3 little knuckleheads of our own that we love dearly. And to be fair to Jen, she did the majority of the raising them, especially when they were really young. But I was around long enough to at least somewhat remember the sleepless nights, the exhaustion. I mean, you had 3 babies at one time.
Yes.
You're running a business now without your wife's help.
Yes.
And you're working weekends. Like, what kind of shift did you
So
have
at
Austell?
Austell, I initially worked 3 12s, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I've got to give a shout out to Nick. Nick at Lenny's has been originally a 19-year-old knucklehead himself and has been with us for 11 years. He's now my partner in our second store in Malvis. Okay. And so we had a really reliable, honest general manager that we trusted.
That was everything.
I literally don't know what my life would have looked like during that time.
Right.
Something would have failed, either the parenting or the business, or something would have failed were it not for Nick. So he helped us out a lot during that time. But yeah, I mean, with 3, the idea of kind of letting her handle it was just out the window. It wasn't possible.
Oh, it's not physically possible.
Exactly.
Right.
You can only hold 2 at a time, and that's kind of sketchy.
Right.
So especially with bottles. But we got pictures of holding 2 at a time and feeding 2 bottles. But
well, I have a feeling that you do a little bit better job of this than I do, but I always tell everybody, if you see me out with one of my kids, I look like the world's greatest father.
Yes.
You see me out with two of them, I look adequate. You see me out with all three of them, I look like I don't know what the heck I'm doing at all.
Well,
right?
By necessity, I'm more comfortable than that. So yeah, I take the triplets and even the fourth. We have a fourth baby now that's 2, and so I can take all 4 of them places and on Saturday mornings and give my wife a break. But it's just by necessity. I mean, it's
You do what you got to do.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, you do what you have to do, and we've been to marriage counseling 2 more times since that initial. One of those was when the triplets came home. No, I'm okay with you laughing. I'm totally okay with that. But yeah, these things we've been talking about were really stressful, and faith and marriage counseling, and I think we both mentioned the word humility, because all these things were really, really humbling.
All right, so you get the babies, the triplets,
Yes.
They get to where they're sleeping through the night. And from your bio, it looks like, from the outside looking in, it looks like you hit your stride for about 3 years there, from 2013 to 16. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so in 13, we had to make a decision. I was still trying to juggle 2 careers, and both of those careers were making me not enough money on their own to leave one for the other. So Lenny's was moderately okay. Austell was good actually, but it wasn't going to provide for my family of 5 and the way I wanted to. And so we had to decide. And so we decided, okay, I'm going to leave Austell, and we're going to take a little nest egg we've got here, and I'm going to sell a car, and we're going to add a drive-through to Lenny's and Daphne. And so we had to literally add on to the building. I had to work with my landlord on the lease, and had to involve a engineer and permit and all these things that I wasn't really comfortable doing.
Right, just for a drive-through.
For a drive-through,
Right.
But it wasn't as simple as putting a window in the
Right.
building. We had to add on a little bit, and we wanted to do everything the right way. And that was one of the best investments. That was the single best investment I've ever made. That was a $70,000 investment. Wow. And the first full year with the drive-through, our revenue went up by about $150,000.
Isn't that amazing?
And
Just
so,
by the addition of a
yes,
drive-through.
it's a whole new market. So talking restaurants for a second, I mean, so our wives as an example, if my wife has all 4 kids in the van, I don't
Right.
care if you're giving away free food.
That's right.
She's not pulling up and getting 4 kids out.
Right.
And so we thought that the drive-through, we would see a lot of our lobby customers in the drive-through. It's a totally different market. And today, we do more business in the drive-through than we do in the lobby.
Amazing. And did you kind of have an idea going in when you started doing all that, or was it you just taking a leap of faith?
I mean, so I researched it. I talked to other restaurant owners, and the consensus was that the drive-through would add about 30% to our business. Over the course of the next 3 years, our business grew 50%.
All right. So now kids are a little older, marriage is doing well, business doing well, added 150 grand of revenue.
Yeah, so we started paying off debt.
Right.
At the end of 2016, December of 16, I paid off my last vehicle. We didn't have any more personal debt or business debt. And so 2017, we're like, okay, 2017 is going to be the year of savings and planning. And so we started planning and eventually constructing the new location.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
going to ask you, you get all this done, and what do you decide to do?
Well, we had a 4th baby, so
Okay.
that was the wrench in the plans. I mean, I mentioned Nick earlier, and Nick was getting married and wanted to buy a house, and he was not a kid anymore. Okay. And so, so often you hear people say you either got to grow or die. Right. And that was the decision we came to. Either our lives are going to change a lot because we're going to lose Nick, and we're going to, I could start another career or something, but we knew that this, even a very successful Lenny's, isn't going to provide for all these stakeholders the way we all want to be provided for.
Right.
And so I knew I had to go to another location.
So you opened a second location up.
That was March of 18, we opened the new store.
In Malibus.
That's, yes, on Highway 90 in Malbus behind Lowe's next to Smoothie King.
And because this is an open and honest show, totally perfect, not a problem at all.
I thought that until the day we opened. It really opened up really strong. So we had a really aggressive marketing budget. I mentioned we had been saving, and I had learned to use social media for my business. And so we opened up in March. In March, April, and May, those sales were climbing. And in May, we came really close to our break even, kind of the first level of our projections.
All right.
And so I got kind of complacent. My marketer left and went to take a job in another sales field. And I thought, I don't really need to replace him. We're almost, at the first of my goals. It's time to start tightening up expenses and try to get this store making money.
Right.
Here it is, the first year. Man, that was the dumbest thing I ever did. the rest of the year was just a steady slide of revenue. And so we had built up a lot of goodwill. We'd done a really good job of that opening marketing. And then I just took the wind out of the sails by not replacing that marketer. And I was still overwhelmed enough with managing 2 restaurants that it wasn't even on the table that I would do that marketing myself. I mean, I was still making sandwiches every day. And I knew that long term I wouldn't be able to do that. But in the short term, I was just surviving.
All right. Well, we got about 3 minutes here. So one thing I think is really, I want to make sure we lay out there is, you met someone, a guide, if you will.
Yes. So if any of you have heard of Boucher's Premium Cigars in Fairhope on Section Street, Gene Bouchelon and his partner Jack are the proprietors of that business. And it is like a social hangout. It's generally for people that are retired, but they're very welcoming to everybody. And I've been going there for 3 or 4 years, usually on Friday afternoons. And Gene is a retired salesman who did well for himself and continues to do well for himself. And he took an interest in me and my business. And by the end of the year, he could, I think, read the stress on my face and in my voice. And in January, he said, okay, you need to market your business yourself. You need to be your own salesman. And I said, well, that's great. That's great advice, Gene. Okay, so how do I do that? And he took that as a personal challenge. And he spent, I would guess, 40 or 60 hours with me in January and February, and we planned. And he said, bring me a list of your biggest customers, and let's talk about who are your new prospects. And initially I really didn't know at all what I was doing, and so initially he made appointments with his own contacts, and he would go with me to appointments. He had me get him some Lenny's wardrobe, and he would go with me and introduce me to people, and he would teach me how to make a sales call. He said, you're going to take a note card and you're going to write down what opportunities you hope to uncover, what information you hope to learn, what are your goals for this conversation. You want to try to do this in about 5 or 10 minutes. Right. And at the end of the meetings, he would say, okay, let's look at our note card. Let's see how we did. What's your report card telling you? How did you do at these things? And at first I learned to just have a conversation comfortably. Right. And then I would realize, okay, well, I was friendly, but I didn't accomplish anything on my list. Right. And so then I learned to naturally move the conversation toward catering, because that's what I'm hoping to grow with these conversations. He taught me to write thank you notes. I've written 200 thank you notes in the last 4 months this year.
I got one, and that was great.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
That was such a nice surprise.
Well, it does change your heart.
Oh, yes,
like it changes my heart to write the thank you cards, because it forces me to really think about how grateful I am to these people that are supporting my business, my family.
That's right.
And it is an opportunity for me to remind them that they are supporting my family and not just a business.
It's one of the points of the show is, man, there's so many fantastic entrepreneurs in Baldwin County, and we're all in this together, right? So we might as well give each other a hand.
Right, and local is where we win.
Local is where we win.
There are bigger name brands than Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, and there are bigger name brands than Lenny's. But the place that we win is we remind the people that see us that they are supporting us, us people, us families, and not just a corporate office somewhere.
Gosh, can you make that my commercial? All right, so let's do this. Let's make sure, I think the main contact we want to get out there, unless you tell me otherwise, because I think people can find your locations relatively easy enough. But if someone's interested in catering, we've got business owners listening to this show, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure, so call either one of the stores. If you call the Daphne store at 621-1635, you'll probably talk to Nick, Ashley, or myself. If you call the Malbus store at 333-1108, you'll probably talk to Mallory or Layla or myself. And either store can take care of you. Okay. Box lunches work very well for lunch and learns or new hire orientations or picnics. Party platters work very well if you're feeding 10, 20, or 30 people.
Very good.
And so we also do Philly cheesesteak catering. Our Philly cheesesteaks are legit.
It sounds good.
They're steak and onions and cheese. There's nothing crazy. It's just good food.
Oh yeah.
Lori had one here earlier today. Website, is that helpful?
Sure, Lennys.com. Honestly, Facebook Lennys is more prominent now. I mean, Facebook sites are more prominent now than websites.
Isn't that amazing?
We've got a new app launching next week on the 21st. So we'll be able to have online ordering, app-based ordering, and rewards cards.
Somebody go to their phone, hit the app.
Exactly,
perfect.
The Lennys app.
Now, this I didn't get a chance to talk to you before the show because I was running a little bit late, but do you have any specials or promos for people listening? Do you have anything out there you want to throw out there, or just a general ad for inviting them in?
Sure. Well, one of the things that's worked really well for catering in particular is if you're ordering catering for your office, I will drop you a couple of free sub cards.
All right.
And so if someone's ordering catering for 20 people, well, then I'll hand them a couple of cards for free subs so they can bring their family in one evening.
Very good. All right, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, thank you.
Oh, this is great. All right, so if you're a regular listener of the show, then you know that we film our conversation as well as record it on the radio, and it goes across multiple social media platforms. So if you're watching this video, you want to reach out to Andy or myself, message us. You get messages?
Sure.
Right, okay. Lastly, if you're a Baldwin County area entrepreneur or business person, you'd like to have a conversation like this one, reach out to me. You'll find my contact info at the end of the show. In closing, I want to thank my guest, Mr. Andy McGee of Lennys Grill and Subs. Hey, Andy, you did a great job.
Thank you.
I mean, you really did a great job. For joining us today, as well as all of you out there listening, I'm Josh Knoll. This has been Focus on the 5, and this is WABF 1480. Thank you all, and have a great day. That's it. Nice. All right, that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Focus on the 5. If you are interested in learning more about Josh Knoll and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, you can find us at gulfcoastfa.com, call 251-327-2124, email josh.knoll@gulfcoastfa.com, or message us on Facebook. Focus on the 5 is produced by Josh Knoll of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. Advisory services offered through Investment Advisors, a division of Pro Equities Inc., a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Pro Equities Inc., a registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is independent of Pro Equities Inc. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Focus on the 5 offers commentary and generalized research, not personalized investment advice. Show content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute a complete description of our investment services or performance. All investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Be sure to consult a tax professional before implementing any investment strategy.